An information hazard, info hazard for short, is a piece of information that is hazardous to know and can harm just by existing. It is knowledge that has the potential to cause grief and pain simply through the means of being. Info hazards are similar to cognitohazards, which are defined as hazards that can arise simply through the use of the five senses. Examples of which you might have heard through fictional horror, such as the Bold One phenomenon or the SCP Foundation. While similar in principle, the key difference between these two terms is that info hazards are real. There are two different types of info hazards out there: data info hazards and idea info hazards. Data info hazards are info hazards that can cause harm through the actions that people take as a result of knowing that info. These info hazards are usually kept secret and confidential, such as your bank account or passport information. This is info that could be dangerous or detrimental if accessed by the public in any way. Say if someone took a photo of the front and back of your credit card and shared it online, that would certainly cause you turmoil and stress. In other words, you would be harmed by the fact that other people know your info. These info hazards tend to be a danger in the hands of the public rather than oneself. Idea info hazards are info hazards that are intrinsically dangerous to know, regardless of if any action is voluntarily taken. A famous example of this is the thought experiment Roko's basilisk. While not the easiest to grasp, it is an idea that can cause harm to someone just by them having heard it. It is not tied to the world in a tangible way, but it is a potential danger. It is an idea that intrinsically requires an action, which will have consequences. These info hazards tend to be a danger to you and not the public, and often appear in the form of dilemmas. A secret is a data info hazard if it's shared with an untrustworthy friend. Finding out that a loved one is a criminal is an idea info hazard, as it forces you to make a decision, rat them out, or become an accomplice.
You're a drug dealer.
No, what? How?
Misconceptions are data info hazards that taint our understanding of the real world and therefore corrupt the actions that we take surrounding certain topics. I am now going to explain Roko's basilisk, the only info hazard in this video that will affect you. You may skip this chapter of the video or continue to learn of the supposed most dangerous thought experiment. Roko's basilisk is a thought experiment originally discussed on the discussion board Less Wrong, stating that in the future, a kind, helpful, and benevolent AI would have motivations to create a simulation in which it would torture anyone who did not help bring forth its creation for an eternity. It would have these motivations on the grounds that this torturing would help incentivize its creation and therefore bring about a great new age in society. The hazard from this arises from the stipulation that knowing about this thought experiment itself would make one vulnerable to it. Those who chose to ignore it would be tortured if it is created, and those who helped to create it would not be tortured, but would allow others to suffer for all of time. The people who didn't know about the basilisk would be spared. Upon immediate knowledge of the basilisk, you are forced to make a decision and let it potentially decide your future or the futures of others. In other words, ignorance was bliss. In reality, this threat holds little significance for several reasons, but nonetheless has the potential to cause harm, therefore rendering it an idea info hazard. Let's talk about smallpox. Smallpox is one of the most influential and difficult diseases humanity has ever encountered, being the first and only disease thus far to have been eradicated through the might of science and the cooperation of the public. This terrible disease, never to see the light of civilization again, aside from a lab setting, has the potential to be a data info hazard. If someone knew the full genetic code of smallpox, which mind you isn't that big, the code that essentially dictates how the virus behaves, this person could theoretically reconstruct the virus. With malice, this piece of information could be lethal, in fact, more than lethal, pandemic causing. Smallpox fortunately does not have a publicly available genome, but smallpox isn't the only deadly virus that killed millions. The Spanish flu is one such virus that has killed in the magnitude of tens of millions of people. It does have its genetic code available publicly online for anyone to view. Another data info hazard on a similar scale is the information on how to make a nuclear bomb or even a nuclear reactor. Both are significantly dangerous in the wrong hands or in the wrong conditions, as demonstrated in my previous video. On a more positive note, having knowledge that something is possible often makes it easier to overcome a difficult barrier. The knowledge that a sub 455 speedrun of Super Mario Bros. Is possible spewed forth several attempts that beat this threshold. The Wright brothers, having proved that flight is possible, have allowed humans to revolutionize society on a global scale. The knowledge that things can get better, otherwise known as hope, allows for humans to overcome the harshest of trials.
Remember, Red, hope is a good thing, maybe the best of things. And no...
Info hazards arise when it's possible for something malicious to become true. Knowing that atomic bombs are possible to manufacture has now resulted in several countries having arsenals of them, putting the world in constant risk of nuclear annihilation. Did you know you can 3D print a gun? A fully functional, depending on your definition of the word, explosive killer. There are files available online that you can download and use to make your own gun at home. In our world, there exists a suicide contagion. A phenomenon in which one suicide leads to one or more others. Effectively, a person hearing about a suicide can increase the likelihood that they are willing to take their own life. A strange but unfortunate data info hazard that helps accumulate the death toll from suicides to 1 million annually. Though there are boundless amounts of information hazards out there in the real world and in fake ones, I failed to mention the most pervasive data info hazard that has and will ever exist. An info hazard so potent that every human being in the history of all time will be harmed by it. The idea of death itself. Death is a fact, and a fact so dreadful yet so inevitable that it defines the end of life. Knowing that one day, the good times we shared with family and friends, the bonds that we made with others, and the little interactions that make us laugh every once in a while, will all come to an end is depressing. Horrifying even.
I can't seem to get happy. Maybe this will help.
It's terrible enough to know that a time will come when we won't be able to experience joy nor happiness, a realization which can push some people to horrible, heinous crimes. In an effort to gain comfort and luxury in one's life, some are willing to rob others of their precious happiness to raise their own in their short, temporary existence. All of this and more because of the knowledge that they possess, telling them they do not have all the time in the world. No one does. Not only does mortality bring about violence and grief, it also pushes the average person into situations of harm. Knowing that one day you will die might result in you keeping a job you dislike because you believe it's too late to switch careers. This happens all the time.
I get up, I shower, I come to work, I work all day, I go home, I go to sleep. I get up, I shower, I come to work, I work all day, I go home, I go to sleep. I get up, I shower, I come to work.
It forces an unhappy marriage to last because it would be too late to remarry and truly be happy. Time forces us to compromise. It forces us to give up on dreams that are too ambitious for our lifetimes. Yet, you only live once. Why not make the most out of it? You could spend 10 years living a bland and dull life, or make the effort to promote the growth of happiness in your own life for 5 whole years of joy. The choice isn't simple, but it is a choice nevertheless that many of us will have to make. Why not make it now?